The U.S. Marine Corps lost an $80 million aircraft. It's rumored to be the most sophisticated aircraft on the planet. Yet rumors are swirling on why this aircraft crashed and why a military focused on woke indoctrination rather than defense and warfighting couldn't find it for nearly a day after it went down. The F-35, a microcosm for all that is wrong with America's government. That's my focus in today's preamble. Let's begin with what we know. The pilot of the doomed F-35 aircraft punched out for an unknown reason. The military hasn't finished making up a story to tell the general public yet. That's concerning on multiple levels. The debris field has been located approximately 2 hours northeast of Joint Base Charleston in South Carolina. Apparently, the U.S. military couldn't track their plane, which cost in excess of $80 million to build. The transponder wasn't functioning. Let that sink in for a moment. An aircraft that is rumored to be the most sophisticated warplane on the planet had a piece of equipment that is found on every commercial aircraft that simply didn't work. Lack of transparency from our ever-secretive and increasingly dishonest government has led to speculation online, one poster theorizing that the F-35 plane was hacked. Is our military so focused on woke that that could actually happen? We'll ask our military panel coming up in the show. Some history on the F-35. The idea was simple. One aircraft adapted to meet all the needs of the various branches of the service, the Air Force, Marines, and Navy. But it's been those adaptations that have plagued the F-35 program since its inception. The F-35 isn't keeping up with combat readiness goals. The F-35 has experienced various technical problems over the years. The troubled F-35 Lightning II family of fighter jets is struggling to stay in the air. One of many such reports finds that the F-35 isn't keeping up with combat readiness goals and fell behind previous records in 2022. The taxpayers are funding our nation's the costliest weapons program that can't compete with older and less expensive combat aircraft in terms of availability to fly, actual missions. The Marines need the jet to hover like a Harrier. The Navy needs a bigger wingspan to land on an aircraft carrier. The F-35 can't do that without that big wingspan. And the Air Force needs a jet that can guarantee air superiority for decades to come. This jet can't do all of that. But Washington, in an effort to stick a round peg into a square hole, says there's no amount of your money that they won't waste to make all of this work. That has led to a fleecing of the American taxpayer and cost overruns that are all too emblematic of government's abuse of our people. Many of you might be asking why the U.S. government would abandon our fleet of fourth-generation aircraft like the F-18 Hornet in favor of a platform that wasn't ready for prime time. The fact is, our government didn't in the beginning. Responsible members of our government initially rolled out the F-22 Raptor, a fifth-generation warplane that was the meanest, baddest fighter jet in the sky. Its stealth abilities and impressive weapons package guaranteed America's air superiority for decades. That is until agenda-driven politicians killed this reliable workhorse that was destined to become the backbone of our air fleet. In the opening days of the Barack Obama regime, the F-22 Raptor program was killed. But Obama and his GOP Defense Secretary Robert Gates had plenty of help killing the F-22 Raptor. The amendment to halt the plane's production was co-sponsored by left-wing Senators Carl Levin, a Democrat socialist from Michigan, and John McCain, a pro-Democrat Republican from Arizona. We'll talk about how the ghost of John McCain haunts our nation's defense to this day in our military panel coming up. Back to the F-22 versus the F-35. Performance-wise, the F-22 possesses superior maneuverability, speed, and altitude capabilities compared to the F-35. It has a higher thrust-to-weight ratio and can achieve higher speeds and altitudes. It's 100% American, contrary to the F-35. That aircraft has widespread international participation. The F-35 program involves multiple international partners with several countries participating in its development and procurement. How's that all working out? Back to the F-35 crash and the lack of transparency from our government. Contrary to what you've been told, what has transpired here is not normal. Our military just doesn't lose a nearly $100 million airplane. Somebody or a bunch of somebodies really screwed up, and now the effort is on to cover it up.
Let me ask you about the F-35. How does the U.S. military lose a $100 million plane?
that will be something that they will investigate. Believe me, after every aviation mishap, the Pentagon does what the Pentagon does. They'll investigate it to try to get the answers on what happened. And they'll also, I'm sure, look at their own search and recovery efforts of the aircraft itself to see whether that was conducted in all the appropriate ways. They'll investigate this. And as the Defense Department always does, they'll be transparent about it when they find the answers.
Okay. If past is prologue, there will be no transparency. There will be no accountability, and the American people will have yet another reason to distrust the veracity and competency of a government we are forced to pay for, a government that has grown beyond the consent of the governed. The F-35 fighter jet, when it's flying, is a jack of all trades and a master at none. That's all well and good if you're applying to be a professor at a liberal arts college. It's literally a national security threat as a weapons and defense platform. Before America's decline, our military invested in the right machine for the right job. If we need air-to-ground capability, we'd focus on developing a replacement for the A-10 Warthog. If we wanted air superiority, we'd develop a pure fighter jet to replace the F-18 Hornet. The kick in the pants is we had it in the F-22 Raptor. Now we're saddled with an F-35 that can sort of do everything with a grade of a C+ or B- if we're being charitable. But we Americans have paid for and deserve an A+ performance when it comes to our nation's defense. The current investment into the problematic F-35 and our government itself is antithetical to that pursuit.